Most cartel leaders and drug lords end up in misery and hardship as if they are paying back for all the evil and brutal actions they did over the people they had inflicted throughout their reign. Do you remember Pablo Escobar? He died in an open fire after years of running away from government authorities. Same goes for other cartel leaders who suffered and lost their lives to rival gangs. Some are lucky enough to withstand death but ended up in penitentiaries that were the worst nightmares of all these ruthless men. One example is El Chapo, who is currently serving the Supermax ADX and spending 23 hours of isolation. One more person who got all the brutality back upon his death is Juan Francisco Patron Sanchez, commonly known as LH2 or El Chico. He was the successor of Hector Beltran Leyva or LH1. Of the once mighty Beltran Leyva cartel, LH1 was arrested on October 1, 2014, in San Miguel de Allende, Guanajuato. Former Mexican Defense Secretary Salvador Cienfuegos was accused by U.S. prosecutors of aiding the shipment of drugs to the U.S. by the so-called H2 gang headed by Patron Sanchez, who was the plaza boss in Nayarit. Though drug lords and cartels are common language in Mexico, the H2 gang left many citizens scratching their heads. Why? Stay with me as we uncover the most brutal and dramatic demise of El Chico. In the Cienfuegos case, Juan Francisco Patron Sanchez, alias LH2, the only name in the documents initially released by the U.S. prosecutors, became more famous for his death than anything he did during his lifetime. As the successor to Hector Beltran Leyva, also known as LH1 or the original H, Patron Sanchez was considered to be the most skilled at spying, co-opting, and corrupting government officials. In the past, the Beltran Leyva cartel controlled the Sonora border region in Mexico, a region that is strongly connected to Mexican drug trafficking. But Hector's brothers Alfredo and Carlos were arrested, and another brother, Arturo, was killed by Marines in 2009. Take note, not the Army. The Beltran Leyva cartel splintered after their deaths and arrest. In July 2010, elements of the Army captured Juan Pablo Patron Sanchez, El Chico's brother, chief of the plaza and the main drug distributor in Tepec. In December, the judge approved LH1 to be brought to the U.S. and was imprisoned in the Federal Center for Social Rehabilitation. Upon request from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the federal judge determined that LH1 should be transferred to the U.S. for prosecution in federal courts in Washington and New York. In the middle of September 2016, the federal police detained Hermosillo, Sonora Clara Elena Lebaran Archuleta alias La Sonora, head of the plaza in Acapulco for the criminal organization that bears the surname of her husband. The three cousins, Hector Beltran Leyva, his brother Arturo alias El Barbas, and Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, joined forces in the cocaine trafficking business. They were born in the mountainous region of BADIRAGUATO, Sinaloa. They were allies for decades. However, the Beltran Leyva cartel broke away from the Sinaloa cartel in 2008 after the arrest of Alfredo Beltran Leyva, alias El Mocamo, in Culiacan. He was identified as the main lieutenant of El Chapo, and Ishmael Zambada Garcia Armaya alias El Mayo. The capture of El Mocamo was considered by the Beltran Leyva cartel as a betrayal by the leaders of the Sinaloa cartel, for which they declared war on El Chapo and El Mayo. Since then, the state has been in the grip of a drug war that has lasted almost 9 years. According to the information by the authorities, El Chapo betrayed his relatives. El Barbas was shot down by the Marines in December 2009, and so LH1 took over and waged a bloody war against his former ally in the Sinaloa cartel. He was extradited to the U.S. in early 2017, on whom 29 preliminary investigations of the federal led to his arrest. The main accusation was the transfer of drugs from South America to the United States and Europe. In contrast to some cartels, such as Los Zetas or Jalisco, Beltran-Leyva often preferred to buy off government forces. Unless cornered, Hector Beltran-Leyva actually had been captured peacefully as he dined at the restaurant without any apparent worry. Also, San Miguel de Allende died of a heart attack while in prison in 2018. Patron Sanchez also was living comfortably in Tepec near the Pacific coast. He headed the cartel's operations in Nayarit and in the southern part of the Jalisco state. Upon taking office in 2017, President Donald Trump made an insulting offer to send U.S. troops down to Mexico to deal with drug traffickers. Marines controlled by the Navy wanted to raid on Patron Sanchez's hideout and fired a storm of bullets from a helicopter equipped with an electronically controlled minigun machine gun. Lights from the helicopter's minigun, which is commonly used in war zones, can fire 5,000 rounds per minute, lit up the night sky above the city. Mexican Navy helicopters shot a 6-second stream of machine gun fire at a home in Tepec, Nayarit on February 9, 2017. The Blackhawk helicopter was called in to suppress the fire in the house to decrease aggression and lower the risk of civilian deaths. One official told the Associated Press, "The Mexican Army troops repelled the attack with fire from a helicopter. As a response to the attack, federal police from the Army joined Mexican Marines in the initial exchange. The first encounter led to the death of Juan Francisco Patron Sanchez, alias LH2, reportedly the leader of the Beltran-Leyva cartel in the southern part of the neighboring Jalisco state. The second aggression ended with 4 more suspects dead." The governor of Nayarit praised the operation and called it proof that Nayarit is at peace even though the weapon was used in the urban area. No Mexican personnel were killed even in past events where Mexican authorities used the kind of minigun mounted on the helicopter over rural areas. According to the Mexican Navy, it deployed in accordance with engagement rules. Early last year, Mexican military helicopters were reported to have fired on homes during the search for El Chapo Guzman. A grenade launcher, several rifles, and pistols were also recovered at the scene by Mexican authorities. As the exchange illustrates, interactions between Mexican security forces and suspected criminals in Mexico, particularly in the Northwest, have become complex and brutal. The Mexican government has acquired several Blackhawk helicopters from the U.S. government through the Plan Merida initiative. Like other helicopters, Blackhawks are susceptible to cartel firepower despite their sophistication. One was shot down over Jalisco State by members of the Jalisco New Generation cartel in May 2015. The state government helicopter was shot down over the Tierra Caliente region of Michoacan in September by suspected Knights Templar cartel members using Barrett 50 caliber rifles. Those are not the only anti-aircraft weapons some Mexico's criminal groups have at their disposal. A van mounted with a 50 caliber anti-aircraft machine gun capable of firing 800 rounds a minute up to 1,500 meters away was discovered by Mexican authorities in Sonora in April 2009. 1 month later, a hotel employee discovered an SA-7 that appeared to be Soviet-made. A missile was found abandoned on a beach in northeastern Tamaulipas state near where the Rio Grande empties into the Gulf of Mexico. The origin of that missile and how it got there remain unclear. In February 2010, a Mexican man in the U.S. pleaded guilty to trying to buy weapons, a Stinger missile and several anti-tank weapons on behalf of the Sinaloa cartel. In spring last year, a series of raids on Chihuahua State uncovered a variety of weapons in the possession of members of the La Línea, the enforcement wing of the Juarez cartel, after the death of LH2, another member, Daniel Isaac Silva Garate, known as LH9, was slain in a confrontation with police and Marines near Tepec. Some videos of the minigun fires shot through a Blackhawk helicopter causing the death of one of the well-known cartel leaders, Juan Francisco Patron Sanchez, aka El Chino, or LH2, had been circulating on social media. Watching such makes it feel like a scene from an action movie. However, El Chico's story would always give us something to learn from. Karma is real. What do you think of our video today? Let us know your thoughts.